Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Okay, folks, we're on, and I think we just lost Augusto. So I'm going to try and get him back if I can.
Here, can you hear me?
Are you still there, Augusto?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it dropped off. I'm sorry. Anyway, thanks a lot, folks, for listening, and we got a really good program coming up here with Augusto Perez, and we are very fortunate to have him on, and Larry's with us on his mountaintop. And I don't know where to start. There's so many things going on. Where should we start? Maybe start in Washington. Rumors of McCain and Hillary. Augusto, what's the status on this possible monitoring or whatever it is? They both seem to have casts on.
Yeah. Yeah, there is this photos going around, and of course, everybody heard about Hillary Clinton getting that cast a few days ago, about a week ago or so, when she says she fell in the stair, but that was very strange, very unexpected, and then she appeared with a cast, and then the same thing happened to McCain. And so there have been rumors beginning to spread that they're wearing ankle bracelets with GPS so they cannot leave the country. That's the rumor. It hasn't been proven. And I doubt that that is going to be proven. With the mainstream media, it's not going to go near that. So I don't know if we'll ever find out about that, but that is indeed very, very strange. So that's about all I have on that.
Well, it's interesting that it's McCain and Hillary Clinton because they were together on this dossier,
right?
Russian dossier thing. And
well,
so
there
suddenly
has been a lot of
the break their legs. What do you think, Larry?
Go ahead, Augusto, with what your thought.
No, I was just going to say that there have been some investigations into that, and we may see something happening soon about that. And of course, everything is under wraps. There's a lot of secrecy, it seems. Larry and I were talking that Jeff Sessions almost seems like he doesn't want to touch that, and now we see others like Trey Gowdy beginning to act similarly suspicious. So these people know something is going on behind the scenes, and they're not talking about it. But there's definitely something going on.
Do you think this could possibly be a counter coup on the part of Trump? I mean, they've been trying to get rid of him forever. I can't imagine he's not going to fight back with everything he can fight back with.
Yeah, I think there is something like that going on. We just don't know. Like I said, it's very difficult to prove. We just don't know. But there seems to be a lot of indictments lately. I mean, some reports have it over 1,000 indictments nationwide, and these indictments go everywhere. They're about pedophile rings. Some of them have to do with the Clinton Foundation. Some of them have to do with the uranium deal. So the names are not known. The names in the indictment list are not well-known names. But what I think is that they may be working their way up the food chain, and that is probably how they're going to. They believe anyway they're going to get to the Clintons and the Podestas and all these people.
What do you think, Larry?
Well, what crosses my mind is this very unusual situation with all the wild cards, if you will, and the latest one being Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. And suddenly we have this really strange counter coup by the Crown Prince about the time that, according to news, if believable, he'll be king next week. We've got to wait and see. But this counter coup happening in Saudi Arabia, and at the same time possibly a counter coup occurring in the U.S., unknown to most of the people, because mainstream media, as Augusto said, you're not going to hear nothing there. And so we don't have a lot of answers, but the timing is really incredible.
Well, what interests me is that we have this Saudi crown prince, and he's rounding up, 400, 500, 600 people. Now he's got them all in some hotel sleeping on mattresses on the floor, and all of a sudden now he's saying, well, if you want to pay a price, of course you can leave. I'll give you freedom. But it seems like I was just reading an article where it said they think that he can extort, and that's basically what it is, under the pretense of corruption, which is probably true anyway. They think up to $800 billion from these people, many of whom are super rich. And I guess there's more to come. But what's interesting here is you also have a Navy coup going on, or we could say purge of, I think there's something like 80 admirals and a bunch of lower officers, up to 400, I think I read, that are being purged from the Navy. And it's being connected back to the 9/11 attack.
Right. Yeah,
Have
I
you
read
heard
some
any more
about that.
Augusto?
I read some about that. I think there's he has a code name, Fat Boy or Fat something, something
Yes.
along those lines. And there's a whole slew of Navy people involved, and it does have everything to do with 9/11. And there is, I think there's probably a purge going on right now to get rid of them all those people, round them up. There's so many things going on right now. We only hear about what the FBI and the Justice Department are doing, but there is also there seems to be a lot of investigation and a lot of things like this going on by the NSA, which interestingly enough is one of the intelligence agencies, one of the few intelligence agencies that's really working very closely with Donald Trump. And
he does have. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say he does have some loyal people in the NSA, and that may be. I had heard that he had taken a whole bunch of secret material over to the Crown Prince, proving who was involved in 9/11 over there, as well as who was involved in the Navy over here, and that might be the opening of the can of worms that leads to everything else.
Yeah, there is a lot there, and of course we know, and we've talked about it many times. And Larry, we talked about it, that they listen to all the conversations. Those people are, the NSA is the one that they listen in to every single conversation, and they are very tight. And I can't remember the name of the man in charge of the NSA, but he is one of the few, I believe, that is working with Trump. Can't remember. I don't know if you remember the name, Larry, but he's one of the three that went in front of Congress to testify, and he was the one that alerted President Trump that these people were trying to take him down, that they had some secret plan to take him down, and he alerted him. And because of that, Clapper wanted to fire him it still does. Clapper wants him fired. So James Clapper. So this guy is in charge. He's doing a good job, it seems, and I think that's probably what's going on there with the Navy.
So what we have is a counter coup going on with information collected, obviously, and held for years, identifying who was involved in the 9/11. And now they, Sorcher Fall, that ne'er-do-well, whoever, claims that the Vegas shootings are deeply connected to probably 9/11. And I was reading a report, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, that the Saudi Crown Prince was in Vegas on the 33rd or 34th floor, because the Saudi Prince, I guess, practically owns those floors, and he was in Vegas at the time of those shootings. And the story goes that they were trying to take him out, that maybe some counter coup forces wanted to get rid of, and it could be Saudi people too that wanted to take him out when he was in Vegas. But I guess it didn't succeed, obviously.
Now, the interesting thing about that guy, I was just going to say the interesting thing about that point is that from the very time that Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia, remember the Saudi Crown Prince was heavily involved with his dad, King Salman, and that was when all this started, and that was when the Crown Prince, after Trump left and went to Israel, he began to work close to Israel, and then it appears a number of people wanted him removed. I mean, the Crown Prince wanted him out, done, dead. And so you may be exactly right. That actually could have been a false flag, a shooting cover to cover up maybe the killing of the Crown Prince who escaped. And so remember, after that was when he started shooting down planes of his own princes, and they've been killing them. They're not just capturing them; they're killing some of them. And he is really solidifying power now after that. It began really heavy after that event in Vegas.
Yeah, and they said that the Crown Prince evidently got wind of it and left and wasn't there. And nobody knew where he went. So he may be smarter than everybody thinks. And he is, like you said, consolidating power. And this probably leads into the war concept, because you've been following that real close, Larry and Augusto. What's going on there in the war front? It just sounds like they're going to start something as soon as he ascends to the throne as king.
Well, what I have been reading and I've been getting in my spirit is that the Saudis are basically turning against the deep state, against their masters. They basically saw how they betrayed him, how they were betrayed and abandoned, basically. And now they're saying, okay, well, we're not gonna play this game anymore with them. We're not gonna dance anymore with them. And so basically now they're just turning against them. All these people that they're purging are basically allies of the Clintons and the Bushes, and this is what is happening. This is the reason why the mainstream media and the Clintons and the Bushes and all these people, they're going against the Saudi prince. They're not, they're saying that what he's doing is dangerous, blah, blah, blah. So, what we're seeing is a turning all over the world. We're seeing some strange events happening. But the thing that really concerns me the most is North Korea, because it's so unstable. That man is so unstable, and we have China now. China, President Xi, Premier Xi is very close with Trump. It seems like they're getting along very, very well. Trump was just there in China. Now he's inviting him back here to America in the next few months again to Mar-a-Lago there in Florida.
Yeah.
And he already had him there a few months ago. So, what is going on? I mean, all of a sudden, China and the U.S. are, friends and like that, and he seems to genuinely like President Trump. You know that. I mean, you guys saw the reception that he got over there in China. Obama he wasn't even close. Not even close.
Yeah. There's something going on with Trump. Because when he went to Saudi Arabia, he was treated like a god almost. And he was allowed to fly from Saudi Arabia into Israel, as Larry has pointed out, never been done before. When he goes to China, he goes to the Forbidden City that no one has seen except people in China. First one, as I understand. Is that right, Larry? He's the only one from outside to be taken there by...
outsiders are not allowed in the Forbidden City, but Trump was taken there.
Mm. So what do you think that means, the way he's being treated all around the world?
Well, I think, personally, we know that the deep state hates him. We all know that by now. Everyone that is anybody in the deep state, okay, all the big names, they hate his guts. They want him out. They want to take him out. They want to impeach him. These people, I believe, the Chinese, with all their, it cannot be trusted. They are our enemies, and same with Russia. But I believe that these people have some honor, something that Obama never had. These Chinese people, they still have some honor left. And they recognize someone who is, who is honest, someone who is straightforward, who is not a liar, someone who stands for what is right, for moral values and right, right things. And I think basically that they just respect the man for that. And anything else that we could say about that is mere speculation, but I really believe that that's probably what it amounts to, and the same with Saudi Arabia. These people could not stand, they couldn't stand Obama. They saw him as a lying scoundrel, double-tongued devil, and they knew that he couldn't be trusted for anything. They made him... they didn't even go to receive him at the airport. The Saudis, they didn't go there to receive him. In China, the Chinese made Obama get up from the back of the plane when he was there. So what does that tell you? Now, in Japan, even the Japanese never really treated Obama that well either, and we saw the Japanese premier there feeding the choi there, the fish with Trump, and it seems to me that this man Trump gets along better, and the mainstream media is saying so. He gets along better with China, with Russia, with Japan, and with South Korea and even Vietnam than he does with Germany and with England and with some of those other countries which are part of the New World Order. You see, so what is going on here? I really think that these people are turning against the deep state, the New World Order. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I got this thing exactly right, but from what I'm seeing, is that the New World Order people are losing. They're losing the respect of some of these other nations.
Larry, what do you think is going on with Trump?
What I find very interesting, and I'd like Augusto to expand on this a little bit, what I find interesting is the timing of all of this. Remember, everything was already set to be played out. The New World Order already had Hillary in the bag. Obama was holding office, waiting Hillary to come up and take over and finish the job, and all this was set pretty much in concrete, if you will. And then suddenly, Augusto was well known for his time shift. He talks about a time shift in Daniel, and he likens it to Cyrus or Trump coming in as number 45 when all prophecy pretty much said that 44 was the last. So the time shift that Augusto speaks of made room for a 45, a president that probably shouldn't have been, but he arrived as a Cyrus. But at the same time, and this is what I'd like you to expand on, Augusto, include maybe if you wanted to talk about this, is the same time the other wild cards, Putin, and now this Crown Prince Salman and Netanyahu, and all of those seem to begin to turn. It's almost like they formed a coalition, if you will, and have now begun to turn, and then we have the pivot point, the sky sign and all of this, the eclipse. But it looks like the timing of this new timeline is bringing this about where if we'd remained in the old timeline, it maybe never would have occurred.
Yeah, I think you're right. This shift that we saw, okay, and it was a shift. I mean, you could almost feel it in the spirit realm. Something shifted. Something shifted. I mean, it was almost violent, a shift in the atmosphere, and you could feel it, and you could see it in the faces of the mainstream media. I mean, their long faces, like they were in shock. They were just in shock of what had just happened, and I believe that happened because a lot of Christians that never voted went out to vote. And that was because of the prayers of the saints. The sleeping giant began to rise, and that caused a shift in the consciousness and everything. When these things happen, I believe that it not only affects events on the earth, it also affects the consciousness of people on the earth. And we have seen a shift in that. This could explain what is going on with the premier in China and with Russia and with some of these other nations. There are a lot of people now that are beginning to again have some respect for the United States. Now, this does not mean, I don't think, that we are never going to go back to that other timeline. I think we have been given an extension, and maybe a few years. I don't know how long. It depends on in the prayers. If we continue to pray and God's people continue to do the right things, this thing may be prolonged. I was sharing with Larry that even Gil Brozard, who is one of my favorites, experts on Planet X, he recently, he's one of the best ones on that topic, and he recently said that Planet X now, that his prediction is Planet X now could delay, his coming could be delayed even as far as 2024, he said. So he was the one saying that it was 2017, 2018. So even he, and he's done a lot of research in that area. He's one of the best documented people that has that Planet X really well documented, and so even he seems to have changed the timeline. And so something is going on. I can't explain it all, but something is definitely going on, and we know that it is the Creator. He's caused a time shift, and there are many examples of that in the Bible, and he did it again. I think he's done it.
Yeah, it does say quite frequently that there will be delays. It's even in the parable of the 10 virgins. The Lord delayed his coming, and they began to beat up each other which is actually starting to happen anyway. But, a time shift, we could call it a delay, and it's on Habakkuk, or Habakkuk, however you want to pronounce that, said that the vision would tarry, but wait for it, it will surely come. Well, if it's tarrying, that means a delay. And so maybe Trump is actually not only judgment for an awful lot of people in the United States, but judgment for the world as well. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. When you get into the Masonic end of it, and Trump definitely is a high-level Mason, he's known as the tip of the spear. And the tip of the spear is the first wave before a major military operation, generally speaking. Because the spear is an instrument of war. What do you think? Do you think he's going to lead us into war? Do you think he will provoke Kim in North Korea to the point where he strikes first? Or do you think we might strike first? I know China just warned America and Japan, and I think South Korea, not to be messing around anymore in the international waters off North Korea.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so that must mean they want to go with try to settle this some other way other than a major war. What do you think, you guys?
Go ahead, Augusto, and then I'll follow up with something else.
Well, I think that he is basically come to the point, and it's not just him. There's a lot of people in the Congress, senators and Republicans, that they believe that this thing has been kicked down the road as far as you can kick it. This situation with North Korea cannot be postponed any further, because they have nuclear weapons now, and they have missiles, and they are improving them by the day. So this has got to be addressed, and I don't think it is the fact that he wants a war. I think that he realizes, and all his intelligence officers realize, that if this man is not stopped now, he will never be able to be stopped. And later on, further down the road, it's going to be catastrophic. Now it's going to be bad. Now is bad enough if it happens now, but further down the road, when he has perfected his missiles, his long-range ICBMs, and he's mass-produced them, can you imagine this man in charge of that, having all that at his disposal? So this has got to happen. I don't think it's that President Trump wants a war any more than we do, any more than anybody does. I think that it's one of those things that it's the reckoning. It's come to that. Now, you mentioned that he's a Mason, and he's got some Masonic ties. But the thing about that, Stuart, is that if we look at the history of the United States, the majority of its founders were Masons as well.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And many of them were good men. They were good people, and they did a lot of good for this country. So I am not saying, I have taught on Masonry. I pray against it. I've broken curses about Masonry and all that. I know, I understand all that, and President Trump definitely has ties. However, just to say, and I'm just saying that to folks out there, just to think that just because a man has ties to Masonry, he's evil and he's going to do evil, that is not accurate. And all you have to do is look at the history of the United States of America, and you're going to see men like George Washington and on and on and on. There's a whole slew of good men that had Masonic ties, and they were responsible for the birth of this nation and for the independence of this nation and for setting this country free from England. And so, there's a lot there that we just cannot get into right now. But, that does not mean that this guy is bad or he's evil. Or, there are, even in the realm of the enemy, there are people that want to destroy this country, and there are those that really don't want that. They want to save this country. So I don't know President Trump personally. I do know one thing, and that's the one thing I know for a fact, and that is that he is a Cyrus. God raised him up for such a time as this, because the Lord showed it to me He confirmed it to me. You know, one thing is when the Lord shows you something and then He goes and confirms it. That is
yes.
That settles it for me, and He did that for me. And so I know He's a Cyrus. And what does Cyrus do? Well, Cyrus helped God's people in the land of Israel. He helped them. He actually was the one that God put there to help them. The man was a heathen. I'm not saying that Trump is a heathen. Some say he's a Christian. I'm not going to vouch and say he's a Christian, but some say he's a Christian, that he's prayed with them, and he loves the presence of the Holy Ghost and so forth. And so I'm not going to debate that. I'm not going to get into that argument. Suffice to say, I believe he's Cyrus. God put him there to protect the Christians in this nation, to protect His elect. And whatever he is, whatever his past is, whatever that is, that's really, it is what it is. But I do know that he was put there for the good, not for the bad, by the Lord.
Well, Larry, on the North Korean thing, do you think that we will strike, because we have to, in order to protect, as Augusto just said, actually would be protecting the people of America? Or do you think Kim will strike first?
Well, let me insert this real quick behind what Augusto was talking about involving Trump and his background, who he might be, who he might not be. I just got a book today. It's called Saboteurs from Thomas Horn, talking about the shadow government and the quest for the final world order. Let me read these two paragraphs because I wasn't aware that a letter from high-ranking Catholics was sent to President Trump. But let me read two paragraphs which will indicate that and name some names, okay, and then get you guys' comments.
Yeah.
It says, two paragraphs here. I'll read them real quick. And what if I told you the rabbit hole of evidence to support this global conspiracy does not stop there and actually ties the resignation of Pope Benedict, the election of Pope Francis, George Soros, Obama, Hillary, John Podesta, the possible arrival of the false prophet, Antichrist, final pope, discussions of a Messiah, and the year 2012 and 2016 to the saboteurs now at work to overthrow the Trump administration agenda? Are you aware that a group of respected Catholic leaders recently sent a letter to President Trump asking him to launch an official investigation into activities connected to the people mentioned above? It appears that Team Obama was involved in a different coup similar to the one currently focused on Trump, but this time against the Vatican, and which the authors of the letter believe forced the aging Pope Benedict to step down for sinister reasons. What do y'all think?
Wow. What is the name of that book you're reading, Larry?
This is a brand new Tom Horn book, just came out. I got it today in the mail. It's called Saboteurs.
Saboteurs.
Shadow Government in Quest of the Final New World Order.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's it sounds about right to me. The little that you shared.
Yeah, you got Obama in there too, don't you? Did you use the name Obama?
Yes, I did, and I remember that dream you had where you talked to him.
Yeah. Just for the folks who haven't heard it, I had a dream. It was very, very vivid. I'm not saying it came from the Lord at all, so don't quote me saying the Lord said this. But anyway, I was teaching prophecy in this dream vision I was having, and in walked Obama. And big smile, walked over to where I was, and I said, you're Lucifer, don't you? And he smiled and said, yes, I know. And then I woke up. So, yeah, Obama would be in a coup against the Vatican, I would think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Augusto? I mean, that makes sense to me.
Well, I know the Vatican is that is the whore of Babylon. I mean, that is who that is the whore. I've thought on that she's the whore of Babylon. She is she is the one that killed over 50 million Christian martyrs there in the Dark Ages, in the medieval times. And the Bible says that she is dressed in scarlet with pearls and all kinds of things. She's decked with gold, and she's drunk with the blood of the martyrs. I mean, that is who that is. And I've done some research on that recently, and all the early church fathers, just about all of them, they knew that this was true. They knew that Mystery Babylon was the Catholic Church, and the Pope, they considered the Pope the Antichrist or the false prophet, one of the two. And there was no getting that wrong in the early church fathers. What happened was, and I haven't finished my research, but what happened was there were some Jesuit priests that came afterwards, and they realized realized what was happening. The people were awakening to the fact that they were, prophesied in the scripture, that people were realizing this. And so there was a Jesuit that came by, and his name was Ribera. And he was the one that began to come up with the futurism, the doctrine of futurism, where everything was put in the future. And if you research that, you're going to find out that this man, and not just him, but there came other Jesuits like Bellarmine, and in 1542, he was a nephew of Pope Marcellus II. And many, many others that came, and they were the ones that foisted this doctrine of futurism, on Christianity, which basically what that is, make a long story short, is that everything is pushed into the future. In other words, everything, all the martyrs are going to be killed, and all these horrible things, everything is pushed into the future, thus covering up all the horrors that were done already by the Catholic Church, so that nobody looks at it and realizes that it is totally, totally demonic and diabolical in its very root. And so, that book must be very interesting, Larry. I may get it and try to read that, because there is definitely a conspiracy, and I don't understand it all yet. There was something going on there. Remember that secret meeting that the Pope had with Obama on the 23rd? Yes. I think it was in 2015.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they shook hands at exactly 9:23 a.m. in Washington on 9/23/2015. So obviously they were sending a message about 9/23, which of course was radiated through the movies, the cartoons, TV, and everything else, where 9/23 was pointed. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of gives confirmation, doesn't it, that the Pope and Obama are deeply involved in this takeover. How do you think? Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to mention, a very interesting book, and there's a lot of details in it that I wouldn't even have time to read. But what the indication is about this is that Obama was deeply involved with the deep state in removing or causing the removal or the retirement of Pope Benedict, because he wanted to usher in Pope Francis during his reign in the U.S. And this is all linked together and tied together towards the final whoever it is that comes in.
Yeah.
Well, what's very interesting is that nobody has seen Maitreya at all ever since Obama came in. And I wonder what that means. You got any comments on that, either of you?
Well, Obama is not out of the picture yet. he may just be right now on the side. Like I said, the plans have been frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Plans have been frustrated, and whether he is or he's not, I don't know. But he definitely could be the man. I know that he was being prepped up to be the person that led the New World Order.
Mm-hmm.
That was mentioned a few times, and so he was definitely. Everybody remembers in the inauguration of Obama how he chose the setting of the
Pergamos.
The altar of Pergamos, the Zeus, and very weird, very strange and dark everything this man did, and so he was probably thinking of having a third term through Hillary Clinton, basically, and he was going to be maybe aspiring to go to the United Nations, or I don't know. He could have even invented an office here in the United States so that he could be like the king or something. I don't know, but anything could have happened if Hillary could have taken the presidency. And so that whole thing was thrown down with the election of President Trump. And this is why I think that they're so furious. They want him removed. They want to impeach him. I mean, they already have this guy Mueller investigating a probe, but that's not enough. They want him impeached, like right now. And so this kind of lets you know, Stuart, that these people are beginning to be concerned that it's getting close, This thing, the guillotine is getting close. They're beginning to feel the burn. They're beginning to feel the heat. And I think this is one of the reasons why they're concerned and they're scared, because all of these indictments happening now the Podestas are, they have been the elder one, I think it is, or the younger one, I think it is, the brother of the chairman of the Clinton campaign. He got indicted, and they say he could go to prison, and the other one could as well. So all of these things, now we know that Weiner also has been indicted. He's also going to jail, and this thing could really get nasty in a hurry for all of these people. We see the Hollywood pedophiles going down. We see a lot of these things are being Washington now. The people in Washington are beginning to be targeted now. This thing could get really nasty in a hurry. I think this thing could go all the way to the Vatican, if you ask me. And it could very well go all the way to the Vatican. And we may see the collapse of the system, of the papacy, and the rise of a new person, of a new entity that could very, very well be the Maitreya, the false Messiah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Maitreya disappeared and Obama surfaced, so it makes one wonder exactly who is Obama. Nobody really knows anything, really, about him. It's a very strange thing. What do you think, Larry?
Well, I think he was born in Kenya, but couldn't prove it by me. Matter of fact, one of the guys that come out and did the investigation, named Joe Arpaio, the sheriff, remember they tried to imprison him too.
Yeah, and why would they care? If Obama's elected president, I doubt if they would have insisted his removal, even if they found out he wasn't even qualified. I think the people would have voted him in anyway. Yeah. And I've often thought that the American people have basically become socialists, and they're so used to these handouts and programs that socialism always envisions. And, of course, the power, they give their power over to the government, and they kind of want to be, they want this system. In fact, I was just reading an article where it said that the younger generation basically loves socialism, and maybe this is where all of this left hate stuff is coming from. What do you think about that? And where are we headed?
Yeah, of course. The young people, I mean, they're idealistic like that and kind of foolish. And we were all young one time, and we had foolish ideas. And I think now it's probably more than before, because the young people have more time to do think all this foolishness more than in our time. We were so busy working and just trying to make a living that. But now they got all this time, to play Nintendo and things that they start thinking, and they have no idea. I was reading also an article about this young man. He's a journalist, and he was pro-Muslim, and he was defending the Muslims and this and that, and he decided to prove everybody wrong, and he went to Sweden. I think that's the place where he went, and there he went to where the Muslims are, and he tried to, he took his camera and started filming. Well, the Muslims, they put on their head, covers, and they start approaching him, and they threaten him, basically telling him, get out of here now, or he's going to get violent. And the police came, and the police couldn't do anything, and they told the police, get out now, or it's going to get violence, because there's more coming now, more of us. And so the police was afraid of the Muslims, and this guy became terrified of them. And then when he came back to America, he had changed his tune, and he said he was wrong, that he didn't realize how these people were. So there you go.
Yeah, I've often thought that if you could round up like Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Podestas, and all these people of the deep state, and send them over to North Korea and let Kim deal with them in one of his camps, that they would come out with a totally different viewpoint on what the Constitution is and what it means. Attitude.
Yeah, that's what I used to tell my kids, when they were little. When they didn't want to eat this kind of food or that kind of thing, or whatever, or started complaining, I would kid around with them and said, "I'm going to take you to Cuba and drop you there for a year, and then I'll come and get you. And I guarantee you, when you're done there for a year, you're gonna be a totally changed person."
Attitude adjustments.
That's right.
I don't know. What do you think about all these sex revelations that are going on now? I mean, obviously, the Lord said he was going to reveal the corruption and the ugliness of America, basically, and obviously Washington. But do you guys think this is a smokescreen as well for something else that's going on?
Larry?
Well,
interesting. Yeah.
Go ahead, Larry.
Augusto. Well, I was just going to mention that's really interesting because I find it telling, and the fact that as this stuff started, if you'll remember the timing, this began coming out about the time Antifa began. Remember their November the 4th purge of the Trump administration, and they fizzled out. The minute this stuff began to cover up mainstream media, you didn't hear so much about Antifa anymore.
No, the whole thing with Antifa is just fizzled out. I mean, it was just like dust in the wind, like a storm in a glass of water. I think the prayers had a lot to do with that, though. There were a lot of people that were praying when we were praying, and Antifa, of course. The other thing I think it's happening is, the FBI and the Justice Department, they're rounding up all these gangs, the MS-13 and probably the Zetas are here too, from Mexico and all those other cartels. And all of these people, they're being paid. These people are being paid and subsidized by the likes of Soros and other deep pockets. And I think that those people are basically Antifa. That's who Antifa is. That's why they wear those masks. That's why they wear the masks. Of course, there's going to be others there's going to be a lot of other people that are going to be caught in the, ensnared in this, with when they see the ads, come and join us and blah, blah, blah. And they're going to be duped, and they're going to be deceived, and they're going to be conned. And those are the useful idiots, okay? But the others are, the really bad ones that are behind Antifa. That's who they are. These are the gangsters. These are the mafia. These are the all these gangs from Mexico and from many of these other countries that are here, and they're being subsidized by these people. You see, they're violent people. They're thugs. They're criminals. These are not your normal protesters. That's a bunch of lies. That's a bunch of baloney. These people, they know what they're doing. They like to hurt people, and they're full of violence and hatred, and of the devil. And so these people in Antifa, that's who they are, and they're cracking down on these people. This is why you're seeing a crackdown on the MS-13s, on all of these violent groups, and this is why they're going into these safe zones. And they're cracking down, the ICE is cracking down, because that is where they're hiding. That is where these people are hiding, and they know it. They know these are the people behind Antifa and all these things. And so right now they are basically in confusion. Antifa basically has been it's confused. They don't know what to do. They're being targeted, both by prayer and both in the natural. And that effort seems to have fizzled out. I mean, look at all the talk. Remember all the talk?
Oh,
November
yes.
4. November 4 is coming. Ooh, watch out. We're coming, November. It came and went, and nothing. And so I still believe that that the right thing is being done. The prayers are going forward. They're very powerful. And there is a man in the White House that is coming against them. This guy's not Obama. That basically would tell the police, stand down. And so there are still a lot of mayors, a lot of governors that will probably do that, like in the liberal cities still in America. But every other place, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
So then we would say that Trump further delayed even the 11-4. Maybe they got wind. I did read a couple of articles where they were warned, don't go out and demonstrate because Trump's waiting for you. And that might have put the kibosh on a lot of it. But do you think they will come back later? I mean, somehow I always have thought that Trump's stay is short, not long, and that Obama, by hook or crook, will come back in some manner. What do you think?
That
How do you
depends on the
think he
people.
could possibly come back? What do you think, Larry?
Go ahead, Augusto, on that.
No, I'm just going to be brief. I said that all depends on the people. If the people pray like they're doing now, that's not going to happen. But if the people quit praying and the people just go back into sin and living in the world and then that scenario, we will go back to that other timeline. Yeah.
What do you think, Larry?
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. I find that other timeline not so much to be desired, but it appears that if it's the default, in other words, if this Cyrus thing doesn't play out longer than we think, and we don't have the prayers, and the Lord says, okay, back to the other timeline, we'll go right back into probably worse than we began, actually. What's interesting, though, is, when you think about Cyrus, the part that's hard to tell people, I know that people have a lot of trouble with Trump being Cyrus. For one thing, they have no imagination, and apparently no biblical history either, because it clearly says, talking about Trump, or rather Cyrus in Isaiah 45, I believe it is, clearly says that Cyrus didn't know the Creator, yet the Creator chose to use him. And so what happens, Cyrus actually decided, I'm going to go conquer Babylon. And when he did conquer Babylon, by the way, he then decided, okay, all you, the Hebrew people, the Jews, you go back to Jerusalem and rebuild your wall and build your temple and serve your God. So that was the Creator's point in the invasion of Babylon by Cyrus, was to loose his people to go do what he told them to do, what he wanted them to do, and what time it was for them to do what they were chosen to do. And so we cycle back to America 2016, and we see that another Cyrus shows up on the scene and actually wins the battle for the presidency, which everybody said he couldn't do. They said it is impossible, yet he did it. And but now it seems like, Augusto, and it seems like that people have lost focus. It's more about trying to make America great again than it is for the Creator's people to go do what they're supposed to be doing right now. I know that the remnant, I know that some of us across the country realize this, and we're in prayer, and we're trying to get our home in order and do the right thing, and we're focused on a goal. However, a whole lot of, I guess, the ones that say they love the Lord are not. They're busy trying to want America to be great again.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen. We know that that's not going to happen because, or you know what? The other thing that, and again, this is another scenario that I hadn't thought of until recently. Is the other scenario is that, you know what? America may get so conceited and may start to do very well, and may really get so conceited and so high-minded that it really thinks that it did it all on her own, because the America is really smart and we are really good, and then we did it on our own, not realizing that it was the Almighty all along that caused this reprieve to take place and caused this shift to take place. And it was not to make America great again. It was to give us time in America, okay, to be able to get our house in order and to subsidize if you will, the bringing in the harvest, the last remnant, the last harvest, and because America is, after all, the financial powerhouse that subsidizes this sort of thing. I mean, there's no other nation that does this. So this may be also a part of the reason why. But if the people in America begin to think that they did it on their own power and on their own strength, and because they're really smart, that could be a very dangerous thing, I believe.
Yeah. Well, there are some things that indicate that the part of Trump and the Cyrus connection. It's interesting also that he's the 45th president, and it's Isaiah 45, which is the way the Lord generally operates, on a kind of a secret basis and numbers, that the Sanhedrin, remember, wrote Trump and Putin for help in building the temple. Now, I doubt if Trump is going to postpone this movement if they can get some peace agreement worked out. Have you heard anything about that, either of you, on the hammering out of a peace agreement, possibly Saudi Arabia being one of the ones that's working it, or Kushner? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The last week or so, Kushner and some, Greenblatt over in Israel, and a number of people is tied in with a new push by the new crown prince. Again, here we are again, Mohammed bin Salman, who is about to be king, possibly rumored next week. He is pushing an agreement with Israel to formulate a Middle East peace program, a new one. This is a new one in the works. Not many people know about it, but some of the Koenig International and others are posting information about this new peace program in the works. And this could be part of, Augusto, I think, and you both mentioned a smokescreen. This could be, if there is a smokescreen, what's being covered up is the fact that Trump, in the background, has activity of some kind of peace accord being implemented, if you will, with the timing of the new king in Saudi Arabia and Netanyahu and movements in the Middle East. So, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think, Augusto?
Yeah, it could be. It could be something in the works there. Of course, this thing is more convoluted and complicated that we may realize, and a lot of this smoke has to clear before we see the final result. But there's definitely something big going on there in Saudi Arabia. There's also something going on there in Iran, and of course there's still a lot going in Iraq and in Syria, and it seems like still it still seems like the United States Secret Service or the CIA is still helping the ISIS militants there,
yes,
and protecting them. And I mean, I don't know how much longer this is going to be allowed. This thing has to be ended. I mean, this has to be ended. This has to end. So I don't know what President Trump is going to do about it. He's definitely going to have to do something about it because I believe this is part of what he is talking about with the President Trump. With President Putin, with Vladimir Putin. I believe they're talking about that. Probably, I don't know, but maybe the conversation could go something like, I'm still not in control. I'm getting to these people. Trump saying I'm getting to the deep state, but I haven't gotten control yet. These things that are happening, it's not my doing. Something like that. And I believe that Putin realizes that this is not Trump's doing, that this is the CIA doing its own thing, and
right.
Some of these people are still. So something's going to have to give. This cannot continue. This battle cannot continue, and so either they get to Trump and they knock him out, or Trump is going to knock these people out, and it's got to happen, and it's got to happen soon. I don't see this thing going on for another 4 years. I believe this thing is probably going to go down in the next several months, probably 2018. 2018, we're going to see something one way or the other, and it depends, like I said before, on how much we pray, how much the people of God bear down and realize that. This is it. We are in a warfare, and we are in a battle for the very soul of America. And if we do not protect this man who God put there as his Cyrus for this time, for this moment, like Larry said, then it's going to be over, and it's going to be worse. This timeline is going to be worse than the old timeline. It's going to be much worse.
Yeah, because if Obama or Hillary get back in by hook or crook or whatever method they use, and it could be, I'd like to pose this question to both of you. Let's say we get into a war. Let's say North Korea does strike America, or let's say America strikes North Korea, and we get involved in a nuclear exchange, maybe a limited one, but a nuclear exchange. Would they not then, the left, the deep state, blame Trump for everything, and the American people would be so upset that they'd want Trump gone because of millions dead in this exchange that we have? What do you think? You think that's possible? I mean, he had an awful lot of Christians had visions of Obama coming back into power, and they were told that he was the man of lawlessness, and there were many, many people like that. So what do you think? How could he come back into power? And as you just said, if Hillary or Obama come back, they're going to come after those who voted for Trump and the Christians with a passion, unlike anything we've probably ever seen. In fact, if Hillary had won, we'd probably already be in the FEMA camps and being killed. What do you think?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think you're right.
Yeah, go ahead, Augusto.
No, that was it. I was just going to say I think Stuart is right.
I think we all know that Obama doesn't have the illusionary power or the illuminated power that he did when he began. However, when you look at so many in America today that is so much behind him still,
yes.
If by chance we do have a sudden flare-up of a nuclear war and an exchange of some kind, there will be a lot of people in America and a lot of agendas in America pushing the fact that Trump caused this, and that if we still had Obama, this would have never happened. And, of course, we know that's true because he almost gave North Korea everything and Russia everything all the time he was in office. So, yeah, it wouldn't have happened under Obama because, remember, when Obama, he actually said, he told the American people right up front, he said, if we get attacked, we won't retaliate. And that's an ultimate surrender from the start. And so, yeah, you've got a point there, Stuart. They could blame him and then bring Obama back in as something other than president to run this poor old nation.
Yeah, the other thing that they could do would be to pull the plug on the economy, which is run by the bankers. And if they collapse the economy or something of a major nature in the economic world were to take place, they would likewise probably blame that on Trump, right?
Well, I don't know. Something is going on. I have a feeling that all these conversations that President Trump is having with Xi and Putin and all these people, I think they're. I mean, I this is not a thus saith the Lord or any such thing like that, but I just have a feeling that this has got something to do with that, with what you just said, Stuart, with the finances and the financial system. We know that China wants to go back to the gold standard, and we also know that Russia wants to do that as well. And we know that both of them, they were really very upset with the United States because the United States was the dollar was losing power. Mm-hmm. And the dollar is tied to the euro. The euro is called for a reason the euro dollar. And so this is also tied into Saudi Arabia, by the way, which is this is really quite a complicated mess here. But I think it's all tied together. I mean, this whole thing is tied together, and I believe that this is exactly what they're discussing. The United States may be thinking of going back to the gold standard, and I don't know how that is going to be done. I am no expert in the field, but I do believe that is probably one of the themes that President Trump is discussing with the the premier of China, Xi, and Putin, and many of these other nations like Indonesia, and this tour that he just took into Asia with many of these other countries.
Well, Trump did say that there was a reset coming, and he wanted to make sure that America was treated fairly in this reset.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the IMF, what's her name, Legrand, has said over and over that there is a reset coming. And it could have devastating effects, but they'd probably let the economy go first. If you go with the how do I word this? Order out of chaos routine of the deep state, where you create chaos and then bring in the order.
Remember also, Stuart, that he recently, President Trump recently replaced the Federal Reserve chairman. That went by without much ado, but I thought that was big.
Oh, very big. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Larry? Do you think? I mean, the economy is already very fragile. You hear all these reports on mainstream media; it's improving. But if you go into the rogue bookkeepers, so to speak, who really know what's going on, we're in kind of stagnation. And the actual unemployment rate is around 21%, according to John Williams. And he's the guy that's testified before Congress a number of times. And the real unemployment rate is about 21% at this point. It was at about 23.5, I think he said, some time ago. So there has been some improvement. But if you look at the real stats, it's very, very slow on the recovery. But if they were to pull the plug, we're in a lot of trouble. The American people would lose their, well, they call them entitlements, but they robbed everybody in the first place. So Social Security should not ever be called an entitlement. They took the people money and poorly invested it, but you would lose all your Social Security. But at the same time, we're watching all that happen. We're also watching a tightening down of surveillance and all of this at the same time. So it's kind of convoluted, but I got a feeling that we're going to wake up one day and everything has changed. What do you think?
Well, do you remember? Let me just say something here. While you're saying that, Stuart, because this just jumped in my spirit. Do you remember? President Kennedy, way back when he was president, and of course he was killed. One of the things that he wanted to do was he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
And he wanted to go back to the gold. He wanted to basically take over the currency of the United States, and and really I guess prep it like it should be, and so it would be strong and so forth and so on. And that is one of the reasons why he was knocked off. And then of course the U.S. was taking off the gold standard. I think that was during the Nixon years.
Yep.
And we are now where we are at. So this is just food for thought. You and Larry and anybody else out there. Could it be that is one of the things that this man, President Trump, is doing? He has been likened to President Kennedy in so many ways, and it is no coincidence that he released the Kennedy files, the Kennedy assassination files, recently. I mean, that is so symbolic to me. Could it be maybe that this man is President Trump thinking about doing this, and he is talking about this with Putin, Vladimir Putin, and Xi of China, and many of these other countries in Indonesia who have wanted to do this for a long time, and they were stopped by the New World Order, by the elite, basically. Could it be that now this is what is going on, and we're just not being told about it?
What do you think, Larry?
Well, I think that it's very, very interesting. As Augusto said, Trump did appoint a new federal chairman to set over the Fed. I don't know. Maybe it's about the first year when he takes office. He's replacing Yellen, and that went over very, very quietly, absolutely quietly. and with mere notice. And so, but one of the things, too, I know we're kind of starting to slide downhill time-wise, but I wanted to bring up something that's an interesting idea and get you guys' opinions, because, you know, I've been watching a lot of this situation. The New World Order, we know that they wanted to set up a New World Order run by the rich men, you know, total control by the rich men of the earth. And that hasn't really worked out. They've had their plans. They're out of time. They've spun down through history and just simply haven't been able to do it yet. And now suddenly there's about the time they think they've got it locked in, comes this time shift that Augusto talks about, like Daniel, and things change. 45 shows up, and the whole world begins to swing out of balance, and it's almost like a counter coup has begun by certain world leaders that I call wild cards that are now doing some type of a coup against the New World Order themselves. But could this possibly be why we wind up with an iron and a clay government? Is the fact that they simply could not solidify the New World Order. They never got it totally finished, and the arrival has to. You remember that they said the alien card would be the last card played if nothing else worked.
That's right. The alien card is well, you know, Stan Deyo did a lot of research on the old language in Daniel. And the arrival is a very real part of it, and you find that in Thessalonians too. There's an arrival there, and Revelation 12, there's also an arrival there. So there's no question there's going to be an arrival. And I've always thought that the real New World Order is not what the rich men are thinking they're going to do, because that doesn't work. The real New World Order is when the arrival comes. And everything changes at that point. What do you think, Augusto?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, like Larry said, their time is up. They basically are out of time. Europe, the EU is disintegrating with the Brexit. That was its death knell. And then the U.S., which they were hoping to have in the bag also in this election for sure. That slipped out of their hands, and it seems like they're just out of time. They're not going to have time now, before they can rein in England and rein in the United States and bring all this. There's just no more time. They wanted to bring in Syria because they needed to bring in all those. That's the reason they had the Arab Spring. To bring all those nations, Egypt and Libya and Iraq and what have you, under the umbrella. They wanted that whole region of the world as one of the 10 regions, which would be the Muslim nations. That didn't happen. That just did not happen, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And Egypt is now back under the Muslim guy they put in there. They kicked him out, and Sisi took over, and that went out the window. And Syria didn't work out. Russia took over there, and they're kicking the ISIS out. So, all of these things, it was a plan put in action by these people, by the CIA and the secret government, to make it happen, and it just did not happen. So I agree with what Larry said. Maybe these aliens are at this time. Maybe they're saying, okay, we gave you guys the time you needed, the time you asked for, and you did not deliver. Now we're going to do it our way, and it's going to be.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's going to be our way, and when that happens, it's going to be nasty, because these people, these entities, from what I have seen, and Larry has seen, and others have seen, is going to be horrific.
Yes. There are people who have given prophecies saying World War III is not what you want to worry about. It's what comes after World War III is what you want to worry about. When speaking about that in spiritual, items or paranormal. What's your take, Augusto, on these Mothman sightings in Chicago? I mean, they're climbing practically weekly of people seeing this Mothman. And remember, Port Pleasant had a Mothman sighting for a year, maybe a little more, before that bridge collapsed.
Well, I haven't seen the Mothman. Yeah, I haven't seen that Mothman, but I have been seeing the reports of these bipeds, these wolf-like creatures, the bipeds that are being seen in many parts of the country, and the Lord did show me that in some time, an experience I had. I was shown these creatures, and they were really nasty. They were really nasty, and they were extremely powerful. They were not human, and so this is if this is what is being seen now, and the Mothman is just one of those creatures. I don't know. I really don't. I haven't really been able to wrap my brain around that one. It could be maybe these entities beginning to be released, beginning to be able to come through the veil. Maybe they're beginning to come through the veil and they can't stop it anymore. Maybe they are purposely being brought in through the veil with CERN and some of these other activities. I don't know. It could be a combination of all of those things. But these sightings are increasing. I agree.
Yeah, well, what do you think, Larry? I mean, you're by a portal up there, so you've seen some weird stuff, and some folks we both know have seen some very weird paranormal activity, I guess one could word it.
Yeah,
I think this is going to keep getting worse. What's your take?
It seems like a new phenomenon is occurring, and they've even cited, and of course Augusto knows where Talahena, Oklahoma is. Down here by me, he went up in that region and up by Heavener. And Talahena now, that's where they're beginning to spot one of these upright coyote or wolf-like creatures walking on two legs, and they're having more than one sighting in that region. And this is cropping up also more and more around the country. I think in Arizona, California, I can't think of the other locations, but they're being sighted off and on. And some of this is some of the stuff Red Elk, Stuart, he warned about was coming.
Yeah, he said even the long walkers were going to break out. So in Isaiah, it talks about the giants returning. And maybe that is why the people that have had these dream visions are talking about the aftermath of the war is going to be far worse, because we're going to be dealing with shape-shifting, very powerful entities of which we've never seen before. But you see them in mythology, and everybody calls it mythology when it probably wasn't. What's your final take there on that, Gusto? What do you think?
Well,
I think that's going to get worse.
I think that one other area that we didn't mention that these creatures may be coming from is from underneath. And I was shown something about that a few years ago. I had an experience where I saw many strange creatures, and some of them were coming from, through the veil, but I knew in my spirit some of them were coming from down below. And so that is another thing that can be happening, might be happening. There's all kinds of things down there in caves, and we have all heard and read stories about the giants in Kandahar, and there's caves here in the United States where these creatures hide and have been hiding, and maybe they're coming out into the open now. So something is going on, and no doubt that is triggering a lot of these things. But I think that the main thing is the main danger, I think, is what we touched on before, That is the invasion, the alien invasion. And that, people can call it whatever they want. Alien invasion, the Bible calls it the opening of the abyss. Others can call it, something else. But basically it is hell breaking loose on the earth, and these kinds of creatures appearing on the earth where they had never been before. And it's going to be horrific because these are cannibals. These entities are cannibals, and they eat people while they are alive. While they are alive, and I saw this, and I heard their screams, and I will never forget the blood-curdling screams that I heard the people as they were being torn and killed and devoured by these creatures. So that's what I think is the main danger.
Well, I was reading a book on some of the Wolfman sightings, and the average height appears to be between 8 and 9 feet. They're extremely muscular. In fact, there was one report where kids, I don't know if it was the Mothman or who it was, but was running beside a car that was going 60 miles an hour. No, that's not normal. That's paranormal. And if this is going to increase, then the people of the earth are going to be facing something humongous that we can't even wrap our minds around. What do you think, Larry? You've been up there by your portal, so.
Yeah, it's a matter of fact, my wife's sister a couple of weeks ago actually saw a Bigfoot running behind her pickup truck at the border in Texas and Oklahoma there. And, it's these things are coming out, it seems, more and more. They recently had a Bigfoot festival here in Oklahoma up by me, and they brought in airplanes and everything else. They were having creatures, large creatures, spotting them and following them at night. And so these things are becoming more apparent. It's no longer legends, no longer fairy tales. Some of this stuff is real. Yeah, and it seems like they're getting more violent as we approach the end of things. They really are out for blood, whereas before they may be spotted, but they didn't chase people or they didn't catch people. There's a lot of this stuff going on in the state of Wisconsin. We're well known for all kinds of paranormal activity up here. So it's, there's a woman that's written, 4 or 5 books on Wisconsin alone of sightings of these strange entities. Augusto, how do people get you? We got about a minute and 30 seconds left.
Well, they can go to theappearance.com. That's TheAppearance, just like the word appearance.com. And they can subscribe to our newsletter or, anything. There's a lot of material there they can read and download and learn, and avail themselves.
Okay. Any final word you'd like to give them? We're down to a minute.
Well, just keep looking up. Keep looking up. Stay close to the Lord, and keep praying. Keep praying, because as long as we keep praying, the angels of the Most High will keep these creatures, at bay, and will keep, God Cyrus in power. And as long as that happens, this whole thing is not going to materialize. So it's up to God's people, really. We are the salt of the earth, and that's about all I got to say. Just keep going.
Okay, Larry.
Well, I just have to say amen, Augusto, and thanks for coming on with us, Augusto. This has been a really interesting time.
Yeah, Augusto, thank you so much for joining us. And, things are going so fast that hopefully we can have you back for your take on what's going on. I mean, it's just going insane. And thank you, Larry, for coming on. And thank everybody for listening. And we will see you next week, the Lord willing. Good night.
Shalom.